They thought Amara Fields was just another quiet black girl, someone easy to ignore, someone who would break under pressure. Locked in a dark space with no food, no water, and no one to call for help, they assumed she'd panic. But Amara didn't cry. She calculated. While they were laughing, she was memorizing everything, their movements, their faces, their weak spots. What they didn't know was they'd just shoved a karate black belt into that locker. What started as their little joke, it's now something they'll never be able to take back. Because Amara Fields doesn't need revenge to be loud. She just needs to stay quiet and move smart. The question is, how far will she go to make them regret it without ever getting caught? Before we go deeper, drop a comment with where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's episode is something you won't want to miss. A faded blue Honda Civic rattled down a narrow rural road, swallowed by fields and silence. Amara sat in the passenger seat, clutching her backpack like a shield. The brick outline of Riverside High came into view. It looked like every other small-town Georgia school they'd passed since leaving Atlanta. "You've got this, baby," her mom said, pulling up near the front entrance. "Just be yourself." Amara gave a small nod, words caught behind a knot in her throat. Outside, clusters of teens laughed by their trucks. Not one face looked like hers. Inside, the school felt like a maze. Endless beige lockers, flickering fluorescent lights. Amara moved carefully, each step deliberate, aware of the eyes following her. Some looks were curious, others weren't. Either way, they crawled over her skin like static. In English class, she sat in the back. The teacher barely glanced up while calling roll. When Amara raised her hand at the sound of her name, a few students turned, whispered, and turned away. By gym class, her shoulders ached from holding tension all day. She changed alone in a bathroom stall, tugging on baggy shorts and a loose tee that hid her strength. 4 laps to warm up, Coach Martinez barked, not even looking up. Amara hit the track with steady strides, her dad's voice in her head. Control your breathing, know your surroundings. That's when she heard them, 3 boys behind her, not running, but circling. "Hey, Connor, think she's training for the track team?" one said, voice soaked in mockery. "I don't know. Maybe she's running from something else," came another, followed by cruel laughter. "Yeah," a third voice added, sharp and mean. "Like the cops." Amara didn't look back. Her jaw clenched, but her pace stayed steady. They moved closer. Their shadows joined hers. "What's wrong? Can't take a joke?" Bryce called, tall, smug, and used to never being challenged. Connor added fake panting sounds. "Maybe she can't hear us," he sneered. "Or maybe she just thinks she's better than us," said Jace, his tone promising worse to come. Amara finished the laps in silence, her heart pounding not from the run, but from holding her fists still. By the final bell, her head throbbed from whispers and stares. She slipped into the car the second her mom pulled up. "How was it, honey?" her mom asked with forced cheer. "Fine," Amara muttered, eyes on the rearview mirror, watching the school disappear behind them. At dinner, she barely touched her food, her answers short. Later, she slipped into the garage, her refuge. Her father had converted half the space into a mini dojo years ago. Mats, a heavy bag, peace. He was waiting, hands already half-wrapped. "Want to train?" he asked. She nodded. They moved in silence, jabs, kicks, blocks. His voice guided her through the rhythm. Each move sharpened her focus, drained her anger, but she stayed disciplined, clean, no sloppiness. "Remember," he said between sets, "power isn't about force. It's about timing, about knowing when to strike." By the end, her shirt clung to her, drenched, but the tightness in her chest had finally started to ease. She bowed, then stepped inside. Steam filled the bathroom mirror. She reached for the old black belt hanging on the hook. Soft, faded, but strong, like her. And soon, They'd find out just how strong. The letters on her black belt were almost gone, the stitching worn smooth by years of use. But Amara tied it around her waist with a fluid rhythm, every twist, every pull, a quiet reminder of who she really was beneath the oversized sweater and silent walk. Looking into the fogged mirror, she whispered to herself, "Not yet. Don't let them see you. Not until you're ready." The next morning, sunlight spilled through the front windows of Riverside High, stretching long and golden across polished floors. Amara stepped inside, backpack heavy with textbooks, clothes chosen to blend in, loose jeans, a slouchy sweater, nothing to show what she was capable of. The whispers started before she even reached her locker. "That's her, the new girl. Did you hear what Bryce said yesterday?" "Yeah, she thinks she's something special." Amara kept her eyes ahead. No flinching, no eye contact. She'd learned a long time ago. Give them nothing, and eventually they'll run out of fuel. But even as she walked, she scanned every reflection, every voice, locking each one away. In chemistry class, she moved to her assigned seat, third row. Just as she passed Connor's desk, his foot slid out into her path. She saw it. Years of training meant she read movement like second nature, but this time she let it happen. She stumbled, caught herself on her desk, heard the laughter ripple through the room. Connor smirked. "Ms. Fields." "Mr. Parker muttered, not even lifting his eyes. "Please find your seat without the drama." Amara straightened, smoothed her bag strap, and sat. Her hands were still. Her mind wasn't. She memorized every part of that moment. Connor's grin, the teacher's apathy, Bryce's quick glance at Jace across the room. All of it. Lunch was no better. She found an empty table near the wall, her back to safety, eyes on every exit. She'd barely touched her tray when a chipper, fake voice rang out behind her. "Oh no, I'm so clumsy!" Cold milk splashed across her luncheon sleeve. One of Bryce's friends stood over her, empty carton dangling from her manicured fingers, eyes full of smug delight. "Oops," she added, tossing a few napkins down. "Sorry." She wasn't sorry, and Amara didn't react. She simply cleaned her tray, calm, focused, like nothing had happened, while across the room, Bryce and his crew laughed behind their hands. Gym class was worse. They played volleyball, and every serve from Bryce's team flew straight toward her. She dodged each one with barely visible moves, enough to seem like luck, not skill. "Let's go, Fields," Bryce yelled. "Scared of the ball?" "Bet she's scared of everything," Jace added. When one spike nearly clipped her in the face, she finally said something. "Coach, they're aiming at my head." Coach Martinez didn't even look up. "It's volleyball. If you can't handle a little heat, maybe you're in the wrong class." Their laughter bounced off the gym walls. Amara took it in, all of it. She didn't break. She recorded. After school, instead of waiting for her mom, she walked the 3 miles home alone. Step by step, she let the mask fall away. By the time she reached the driveway, her dad's truck was already there. He was unloading tools when she walked up. One look at her and his hands stilled. "Tough day?" he asked gently. She didn't answer, just picked up a box to carry inside. "Your mom's doing a double," he added. "Garage in 20? Amara nodded. No explanation needed. 20 minutes later, she was on the mat, hands wrapped, jai crisp, but already starting to soak. Her father held the heavy bag steady as she unleashed a storm. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut, again. "Faster," he said. She complied. Each strike was harder than the last, but her breathing was calm, her form sharp. No wasted energy, just precision, sharpened by every insult, every shove, every silence that had followed her since she walked into that school. Connor's foot, the milk, the volleyball, the coach's shrug, every image burned through her arms into the bag. Her father said nothing. He just adjusted his stance to absorb her growing power. An hour in, sweat soaking her sleeves, her fists burning, He finally spoke. "Your stance is too wide," he said quietly. "Tighten it up. You'll need it." She did, and when her next combination landed, it sounded different. He felt it too. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, the garage now lit only by a single flickering fluorescent bulb. Each strike Amara delivered wasn't just part of a routine, it was a silent vow. At school, she played the part they expected, quiet, unthreatening. But here, on the mats, she was exactly who she truly was. Her father stayed silent as he held the bag, occasionally correcting her form. He said nothing about the tears that mixed with her sweat. He didn't have to. Friday afternoon, the end of the school week, the halls of Riverside High were nearly empty, streaked with golden light. Most students had already bolted. Amara moved slowly, methodically organizing her books at her locker. She liked leaving late. Fewer eyes, fewer collisions, less cruelty. But the echo of footsteps made her pause. "Hey, Fields," Jace's voice rang out, casual and mocking. She didn't turn right away. Instead, she closed her locker, counted silently to 3, and then faced him. He stood a few feet back, hands in his jacket pockets, the usual smirk playing on his lips. "Coach Martinez needs help moving some stuff in the storage room," he said. "Told me to get you. Said something about making up for yesterday's volleyball thing, extra credit or whatever." Amara narrowed her eyes. "Why me?" Jace shrugged. "Guess you're still here, or don't worry about it." He turned, walking backward toward the gym, tossing the offer over his shoulder. It felt wrong, everything about it. But if there was even a slight chance it was real, a chance to prove she wasn't just the new girl, maybe it was worth it. "Fine," she said, adjusting her backpack. "Lead the way." The gym was nearly silent. Their footsteps echoed off the high ceilings. The sun had lowered, casting long, distorted shadows across the court. Jace headed for the far end, toward the open door of the storage room. It was dark inside. Amara stopped at the threshold. Every muscle in her body tensed. "Coach?" she called. "In here," someone replied. But it wasn't Coach Martinez. Before she could turn, arms yanked her back. She smelled the cheap cologne before she saw the face. Bryce. He ripped her backpack off. From the shadows, Connor appeared, helping shove her toward a row of old lockers. "Let go!" she shouted, twisting, but they had the upper hand, and they knew it. "What's wrong, Fields?" Bryce laughed. "Thought you'd like a quiet place to study?" They forced her backward toward an open locker. She resisted harder, but they were ready. "Stop! You can't—" "Watch us," Connor sneered. And then, with one final push, they slammed her inside. The metal door clanged shut, vibrating through her spine. Through the narrow slits, she watched Jace shove her backpack into another locker. "Have a nice weekend," Bryce called, jamming something into the lock to keep it shut. "Maybe this'll help you learn your place." Their laughter faded with their footsteps. The door to the storage room closed with a loud thud, leaving her in darkness. "Hey!" Amara screamed, pounding on the inside of the locker. "Let me out!" No response. The gym was empty. Her voice bounced off the walls and died. She kicked the door, but the space was too tight. No leverage. "Help!" Her voice cracked. "Somebody!" Silence. Minutes passed. The light faded. The air turned stale. Her arms were pinned, her chest tight. Breathing grew harder. Panic crawled up her throat. She closed her eyes, not that it made much difference, and whispered the only words that could keep her grounded. "Control your breathing." Her dad's voice, calm and steady, repeated in her head. "Panic kills. Breathing saves. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. Again." The metal pressed cold against her back. The smell of dust, rust, and sweat filled the air. But it wasn't enough to crush her. They thought they'd won, that she'd break. They didn't know her. Her whisper in the dark was quiet, but unshaken. "I'll get out, and I'll remember everything." The first gray hints of morning crept in through the upper windows. Light filtered weakly through the vents in the locker. Amara hadn't slept. Her muscles throbbed from being cramped all night. Her throat was raw. Her legs had gone numb at least twice. But she'd made it through. Her fingers, though stiff, moved with purpose. She reached for the loop on her belt, the small steel tool her father had made her carry. She maneuvered it through the slit in the locker, working on the mechanism from the inside. Scraping metal, careful pressure. "Come on," she muttered, sweat dripping into her eyes. The lock shifted. A click echoed in the still air. Amara froze, then leaned forward, testing it. Still stuck, but looser. She braced herself, twisted her body against the narrow space, and pushed. She braced both feet against the back wall of the locker. Years of karate had taught her how to find pressure points, and when to use them. The old metal groaned under the tension, then cracked with a sharp, splintering sound. Light poured through the opening as the panel gave way, and Amara spilled out backwards, hitting the dusty gym floor with a thud. For a moment, she didn't move, just lay there, breathing in the open air like it was the first breath she'd ever taken. Her legs trembled too much to stand, but she did it anyway, rising on shaky limbs, her entire body screaming in protest, clothes soaked, mouth dry, skin raw. She stumbled to the other locker, the one they hadn't bothered to lock, and pulled out her backpack. The gym was still empty. Morning sunlight sliced through the space in long, golden beams. She checked her phone. Dead. No clue how long she'd been locked up, but her muscles gave her the answer. It had been hours. She needed water, badly. Still moving with quiet purpose, Amara slipped through a side exit. The crisp morning air hit her like ice, a shocking contrast to the stifling dark she'd just escaped. But instead of heading to the office, she turned toward home. She couldn't deal with the questions. Not yet. Not from a school that had already proved it wouldn't protect her. The walk was brutal. Each step sent aches through every joint, every bruise. By the time she reached her front steps, the sun was fully up. Her father's truck was already in the driveway. He must have left his job site early. She found him in the kitchen, mid-sip of coffee, his cup frozen halfway to his lips as he saw her. His eyes flicked from her limp to the swelling on her shoulder. "Amara," he said, calm but sharp. "I'm okay," she replied, though her voice cracked as she said it. He said nothing, just opened the freezer, pulled out an ice pack, and wrapped it in a towel. When she wavered, he guided her into a chair, then filled a glass with water. She drank it in heavy gulps, her throat burning. He pressed the cold pack gently to her shoulder. "You want to talk?" She shook her head. "Not yet." He didn't press. He'd taught her long ago. Sometimes the first step in fighting back is learning when to wait. "Go clean up," he said softly. "You're staying home today." Hot water eased the pain. The bruises were blooming dark now, sharp reminders of every minute she'd spent locked in that metal tomb. She dressed slowly, carefully, each movement calculated. Back in her room, she stood in front of her corkboard and stared at the photos she'd printed from the school's yearbook site weeks ago. Bryce, Connor, Jace, lined up like trophies. Beneath each face, she pinned a single word: strategy, weakness, revenge. Sunday morning brought soft light and silence. Amara picked at her eggs while her mother bustled nearby, humming as she brewed coffee. The oversized hoodie masked the worst of it, but not all. "You've been real quiet since Friday," her mom said, sitting across from her. "You sure you're feeling better? Maybe we should swing by the hospital." Amara forced a bite. She wanted to tell the truth. She wanted to scream it. But attention meant vulnerability. And vulnerability was how they thought they'd won. "Just a bug," she muttered. "Dad gave me ginger tea. I'm okay." Her mom frowned, not fully convinced. "All right, take it easy. I'm working a double shift. Your dad's in the garage if you need anything." As soon as she disappeared upstairs, Amara cleared her plate and made her way outside. Each step was more deliberate than the last. In the garage, the air was thick with the smell of sawdust and metal. Her father stood at his workbench, tools arranged with military precision, old habits from his Marine days. The mats were already unrolled. "Dad," he turned, reading her posture before she said anything more. "You ready to talk about Friday?" "No." She stepped onto the mat barefoot. "But I need different training now. Not defense, something focused, controlled." His expression didn't change, but his eyes said everything. He understood. After a beat, he nodded. "Show me your stance." For the next 2 hours, they moved almost without speaking. He adjusted her technique, corrected every angle, showed her how to strike with precision, how to do the most with the least. When she stumbled, he caught her. When her injuries slowed her down, he taught her how to keep moving anyway. During a break, as she sipped water and stretched her arms, he finally said, "Control isn't just holding back. It's knowing exactly how much to give and when to give it." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. She was already learning. Amara wiped the sweat from her brow, breath steady, the truth sinking into her bones. "I know exactly how hard I mean to hit," she whispered. After training, she showered, changed, and sat down at her desk, her laptop glowing in the darkened room. She opened every social media tab she could: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Bryce, Connor, Jace, they lived online without filters, without caution. They posted their habits like clockwork, and Amara took notes. Bryce hit the gym every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m., religiously. Connor always complained about detention in room 204, third period. Jace? He bragged about staying after basketball practice on Wednesdays, alone. Their schedules were right there, scattered in selfies, rants, and tagged locations. She compiled it all into a document: lines, dots, patterns. Bryce: football practice, Tuesday, Thursday. Weekend shifts at his dad's store. Early solo gym workouts. Connor: always vanishes during third period, usually lifting weights alone in the gym. Jace: basketball 3 days a week, parks way out in the back lot near the trees. Each detail was a thread. And Amara? She was weaving something sharp. As the evening settled over the neighborhood, she pulled on a black hoodie and gloves. The streets were still. Most families gathered inside for Sunday dinner. But Amara wasn't walking aimlessly. She was memorizing. She walked the routes, from school to their homes, the back door of the gym Connor liked to use, the football field where Bryce always stayed late to impress himself, and the shadowy corner of the parking lot where Jace parked alone. Each place offered something: a blind spot, a weak angle, a space where consequences could finally find them. Her body still ached under the hoodie. Every bruise pulsed in sync with her steps. She let it fuel her, let it remind her. A car passed, headlights sweeping briefly over her. She kept her head down. Just another girl on an evening walk, but beneath the hood, her mind was already deciding where and when justice would begin. Monday morning came with a chill that settled under the skin. Amara walked into Riverside High in her usual loose clothes, shoulders relaxed, her face unreadable. She still moved stiffly. The bruises hadn't faded, but she held her posture with practiced calm. The school buzzed with its usual chaos, lockers slamming, students yelling across the halls. But then she heard it, a familiar laugh, followed by low voices near the water fountain. Bryce, Connor, Jace, locked up tight. Bryce snickered. Probably cried all the way home, Connor muttered. "Teach her to know her place," Jace added. Amara walked past without pausing. Her expression didn't change, but she heard it all. Every word, every smirk. She saw how Jace's laugh lagged, how his eyes darted too quickly. The weakest link was already fracturing. In English class, she sat 3 rows behind Connor. He bragged about what they'd done, laughing like it was just another story. But Amara wasn't listening for entertainment. She was calculating. The back gym area, after practice, low lights, no cameras. During lunch, she sat alone, not because she was invisible, but because she needed focus. She watched Jace from across the cafeteria. Monday meant late practice. He was always the last one to leave. His truck, same spot every time. Hidden. Between classes, she stepped into the girls' bathroom and pulled out the stationery she'd bought just for this. Pink paper, curvy handwriting, little hearts over the eyes. It had to look exactly right. "Hey Jace, I've seen you at practice. You're amazing out there. Would love to talk sometime. Maybe after practice behind the gym. Just us. Don't tell anyone. I'm shy. XOXO Katie." There were 3 Katies on the cheer squad. That was intentional. Let him wonder. Let him hope. During study hall, she timed her walk perfectly. The hall was quiet. She passed Jace's locker, slipped the note through the slot without slowing down, and kept walking. No cameras, no witnesses, no suspicion. Later that day, she saw it working. Jace checked his phone, then glanced toward the cheerleaders. None of them looked his way, but he couldn't stop watching. She didn't need a reply. His face told her everything. After the final bell, Amara walked home. Focused, composed, the garage was waiting. Her father stood by the mats, timer in hand. 3-minute drills, he said simply. Speed, precision, no wasted movement. She nodded. No questions. They trained in silence. Every strike cleaner than the last. Takedown drills, grab, sweep, control, over and over. Each move had to be fluid, invisible, fast enough to surprise, but calculated enough to leave no permanent damage. Amara didn't want to injure Jace for life. She wanted him to remember. Again, her father said. Tighter, sharper, make it matter. She moved without hesitation. Sweat soaked her shirt. Her arms burned. The timer beeped every 3 minutes, pushing her to execute under pressure, because in the real world, seconds decide everything. Fear makes people sloppy, her father reminded her during a break. Use that. She nodded, the truth already locked in her muscles. Tomorrow night, Jace wouldn't be thinking straight. He'd be distracted, flattered, expecting flirty whispers, not consequences. He'd walk right into it. That evening, Amara laid out her clothes for the next day. Loose jeans, neutral hoodie, nothing that revealed strength or purpose. Her real outfit, black hoodie, gloves, stayed packed in her bag, waiting. The next morning, she arrived early, posted up quietly inside the main doors. She spotted him instantly, Jace at his locker, pretending to check his books, but stealing glances at the cheerleaders passing by. Nervous, hopeful, just like she expected. Between second and third period, she timed it perfectly, crossing him in the hallway. As they passed, she turned just enough to whisper, "Tonight." That single word made him freeze. By evening, the gym was nearly silent, except for the squeak of Jace's shoes on polished hardwood. He ran solo drills, his jersey soaked with sweat, his body dragging from the long workout. The team had cleared out. Coach left him in charge to lock up. 7:45 p.m. He glanced at his phone. Any minute now. He couldn't stop smiling. Which Katie was it? Martinez, maybe. She smiled at him during Spanish class, or Katie Chen from the dance team. Either way, it didn't matter. Someone noticed him. He shut off the gym lights, 1 row at a time, shadows creeping in from the corners. Then he pushed open the back door. The parking lot outside was nearly dark. Only his truck sat under the oaks. Long shadows danced across cracked asphalt under a distant street lamp. "Katie?" he called, trying to sound cool. "You out here?" Silence. He adjusted his duffel bag, suddenly aware of how alone he was. This part of the lot backed up to the woods. out of sight from the road, perfect for a secret meeting or something else. Movement. He turned. A figure stepped from behind the dumpsters. Short, hooded, still. He squinted through the dim light. "Katie?" he half laughed. "You really are shy, huh?" But something was off. The way they stood, balanced, ready, didn't match the girl he expected. "What? No hello?" he tried, voice edging into uncertainty. "I thought we were—" He didn't finish. In one blink, the figure was on him. 10 feet. Gone. A sudden strike hit him dead center in the chest, knocking the wind from his lungs. He stumbled back, dropping his bag. Tried to swing. Too slow. An elbow slammed into his ribs. Precise, punishing. His breath caught in his throat as pain flared across his side. Before he could recover, his arm was twisted up and behind him, bent to the edge of snapping. He shouted, but the grip didn't ease. "Wait!" he gasped. But she wasn't here to talk. Using his own weight against him, she flipped him. His feet left the ground. The world spun. And then, impact. The pavement hit hard. Stars burst across his vision. He lay stunned, teeth rattling. Arm locked, shoulder screaming. A knee pressed into his spine, keeping him pinned. "Please," he wheezed, panic blooming fast. "I don't have any money." Pressure increased. His wrist bent further. The message was crystal clear. Shut up. No words were spoken. She just held him there, long enough to make it unforgettable, long enough for the helplessness to burn into his mind. Then suddenly, the weight vanished. Jace rolled over, clutching his arm. Gasping, the figure stood over him, still hooded, silent. Smaller than he'd thought. Female. She hadn't said a word the entire time, and she didn't now. One step back, then another. And then she disappeared into the darkness beneath the trees. Jace lay on the ground, eyes wide, chest heaving. His ribs ached, his pride shattered, and the silence around him was louder than anything he'd ever heard. Each breath felt sharp. The entire encounter had lasted under 30 seconds, but it had changed everything. Jace lay still for minutes before he could push himself up. His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone, which had fallen during the takedown. He unlocked it, opened the dialer, and hovered over 911. But stopped. What would he even say? That a girl took him apart in less than half a minute? That he never saw it coming? That he was left gasping in the dirt by someone smaller, faster, and far more prepared? The gym's back door creaked open, throwing light across the dark lot. "Mr. Rodriguez?" The night janitor stepped out with a rolling trash cart. "Help!" Jace shouted, voice cracking. "Someone attacked me!" The janitor hurried over, already dialing for assistance. "What happened? Who did this?" "I don't know," Jace said, wincing as he shifted. They came out of nowhere. But in the back of his mind, he knew. This wasn't random. Someone had waited. Someone had picked him. Someone wanted him to feel that precise, terrifying powerlessness. Across town, in a quiet garage, Amara knelt on the training mat. Her sweatshirt hood was down now, her breath slow and steady. Her hands were still red from impact, but her eyes were calm, not joyful, just certain. "One down," she whispered into the silence. By Tuesday morning, the school hallways were electric. Clusters of students whispered, screens glowing with secondhand stories. Jace hadn't shown up. His mother had posted online that he'd been taken to the ER. "They said his arm's all messed up," a freshman whispered near the water fountain. "My cousin works at the hospital," another chimed in. "Said he was crying when they wheeled him in." Bryce slammed his locker shut, making everyone nearby jump. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the hallway. Connor leaned against the wall, trying to act casual. "This wasn't random," Bryce muttered. "Someone's sending a message." "Dude, chill," Connor said, shifting. "It's probably just, I don't know, some guys from the east side." They didn't take anything, Bryce snapped. Not his phone, not his wallet, just left him on the pavement. That sound like a robbery to you? Before Connor could answer, the crowd shifted. Amara walked past. Calm, unreadable, her backpack slung casually over one shoulder. She didn't even glance at them. Connor felt something cold twist in his gut. You don't think... he started. Bryce forced a laugh too loud. Her? Come on, you saw her last week in gym. She trips during warm-ups. But his voice had lost its edge. He didn't believe what he was saying. Not completely. They watched her disappear around the corner. We should tell someone about the locker, Connor said, almost whispering. Just in case. Shut up, Bryce snapped. What are we gonna say? That we locked some girl in a gym and now we're scared she's getting back at us? The bell rang. Students scattered to their next classes. Connor headed to chemistry, but his thoughts were spinning. Halfway through lab, his phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Hey there, handsome. Saw you at the track meet. Want to meet tomorrow? I know a private spot. Connor smirked, glancing around. No one noticed. He typed, Who is this? The reply came fast. Someone who's been watching you. Weight room, 5th period. I know you have study hall. He hesitated, suspicious, but curious. Could it be that junior from the swim team? She'd been eyeing him lately. How do I know you're real? He wrote. A photo popped up. A girl's silhouette. A shadowy bathroom mirror. The timestamp was from today. Connor grinned. Tomorrow, 1:30. Don't be late. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. He barely listened when Bryce tried to rehash theories at lunch. His focus was locked on tomorrow's mystery meetup. That evening, across town, Amara sat cross-legged on her bed. Her burner app was already wiped. The fake account deleted. On her desk, a small jar of Tiger Balm and a pair of fresh hand wraps. She rubbed the balm into her bruised knuckles, checking her skin, her grip, her recovery. These hands were more than tools. They were lessons waiting to be delivered. You good? Her father called from downstairs. She flexed her fingers, the heat of the balm sinking into her skin. Tomorrow, she said under her breath, he'll understand what helpless really feels like. Then she called back to her father. Almost. Her voice had been steady, certain. Now it echoed in Connor's memory as the weight room door creaked shut behind him. His footsteps landed heavy on the rubber flooring, swallowed by the low hum of the overhead lights. The space smelled of sweat, old mats, and iron. Familiar, but something felt wrong. Hello? He called out. His voice bounced off concrete walls. Anyone here? The hallway beyond the door was empty. 5th period meant the school was quiet. His phone buzzed. 1:30 p.m., right on time. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. His mouth went dry. Okay, this isn't funny. The overhead snapped off. Darkness surged in, leaving only a faint glow from the hallway window. He took one step toward the door. When something struck the back of his knee, he collapsed. A shadow moved. Fast, silent, too fast. Connor swung wildly, hitting air. Then pain, white-hot, as an elbow slammed across his nose. Blood splattered down his chin. He stumbled into a dumbbell rack, sending iron crashing to the floor. The figure was already on him, moving with surgical precision. A knee to the stomach. His breath vanished. Hands twisted his arm behind his back. The pressure was unbearable. Stop, he shouted, voice cracking. The figure paused, still holding his arm at that excruciating angle. Connor turned his head, trying to see. Black hoodie, gloves, a face hidden by shadow, but smaller than he expected. Too small to be a man, too steady to be random. Then the whisper. Remember the locker? His blood froze. It was a woman's voice, calm, controlled, familiar. It was dark in there too, wasn't it? The pressure increased. his mind filled with the memory, the silence, the cold metal, the fear. Another strike, this time to the knee. Something tore. He screamed, but the glove smothered the sound. Now you know how it feels, trapped, helpless. And then it stopped. The grip loosened. Connor collapsed to the mat, clutching his knee, eyes wide with disbelief and agony. The figure walked away without a word. At the door, she turned the lock, his key now in her hand. "Tell Bryce," she said quietly. "He's next." Then she vanished into the hallway. Connor lay in silence, barely able to move. His phone had slid under a weight bench. He couldn't reach it. 5 minutes later, the janitor found him curled up on the floor, whispering nonsense about shadows and lockers. His face was bloodied, his knee possibly torn. An ambulance was called. The principal demanded answers. Connor had none. Outside, rain pounded the pavement. Amara walked slowly through it, her black hoodie soaked, her steps steady. In her pocket, Connor's keychain clicked softly with each movement. The storm erased any footprints, any drops of blood, but it couldn't erase the moment his eyes had filled with panic, couldn't undo what he'd felt. True helplessness. 2 down. She kept walking. 1 to go. Across campus, Bryce paced the locker room alone, cleats clicking, mind racing. Everyone else had left practice over an hour ago, but he stayed, jittery, haunted by silence. His phone buzzed, a message from Connor. "They know it was us. Someone's coming." Bryce hissed and typed back, "Calm down. You probably just got jumped." But even as he texted, his hands were shaking. First Jace, then Connor. Both taken down in isolated corners of the school. Neither could describe who did it. But both were terrified. And Bryce knew why. The door creaked. He jumped, hard in his throat. It was just Mike, a teammate coming back for his charger. "You okay, man?" Mike asked. "You look like you saw a ghost," Bryce cracked. He couldn't hold it in anymore. "You want to know what's really going on?" He grabbed Mike by the shoulder, voice low, frantic. "That new girl, Amara, last Friday, we locked her in a locker. Me, Connor, Jace, thought she needed to be put in her place. She was getting bold, walking around like she belonged here." Mike's eyes widened in disbelief. "You did what?" Bryce's laugh was brittle. "We just wanted to scare her." Disgust spread across Mike's face. "That's messed up. I mean, she deserved it," Bryce insisted. "But now someone's taking us out one by one." His voice cracked. "Jace can't even breathe. Connor might need surgery. And me?" Then he saw it. Mike's phone. Recording. "Delete that," Bryce snapped, stepping forward. But Mike was already backing up, thumbs flying. "You're sick, bro. All of you." "I said delete it!" Bryce lunged, but Mike bolted. A minute later, Bryce's phone buzzed again, then again and again. The video was already spreading. The video of Bryce's confession spread like wildfire. Group chats, private DMs, anonymous forums. Within minutes, everyone knew. His fear, his guilt, his voice, all of it, out in the open. He slammed his locker shut, breathing hard. This couldn't be real. His dad was on the school board. He wasn't supposed to be touchable. Then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Midnight. Practice field. Bring your pride. Bryce stared at the message until the words felt seared into his mind. Another buzz. Come alone. Or don't come at all. His fingers shook as he typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You know who." Across town, Amara stood in the garage, silent as her father adjusted the heavy bag. "I might be out late tonight," she said quietly. He looked at her, not surprised. Since the night she escaped the locker, they hadn't spoken much. But they'd trained, hard, relentless, focused. He knew this was coming. "Be smart," he said at last. "I am," she replied, her voice firm. "This ends tonight." He nodded once, then reached into his bag and handed her a roll of hand tape. "Protect your hands. You've got class in the morning." A faint smile flickered across her face. She took the tape and began wrapping her fists. Slow, deliberate, each layer a promise. When she was done, she pulled on a clean black hoodie. No blood, no evidence, just purpose. Beneath it, she tied her black belt, gold-stitched, worn, earned. "This one," she whispered, flexing her taped hands, "is for the locker." Midnight. The football field lay buried in fog, the kind that blanketed everything like a secret. Bleachers creaked in the cold. The moon cast long shadows across the empty turf. Bryce stepped onto the grass, his cleats crunching the frost. His Letterman jacket offered no warmth, but it wasn't the cold that made him shiver. It was everything else. He kept checking over his shoulder. Every flicker of wind made him jump. "Hello?" he called out. "I got your message. I'm here." No reply, just silence and fog, then movement near the end zone. A figure stepped forward, parting the mist with each step. Dressed in black, hood low, face hidden. Bryce tried to laugh, but it cracked. "This a prank? You trying to scare me?" The figure said nothing. "I'm the star quarterback," he shouted, trying to reclaim control. "You think this field belongs to you?" The figure stopped, then, calmly, removed the mask. Moonlight lit her face. Amara. Her expression was calm. Too calm. But her eyes, they burned. "You," Bryce breathed, taking a step back. "But we locked you." "Yeah," she said quietly. "You did." She dropped her hoodie, revealing the black belt around her waist. Her fists, wrapped in white tape, hung loose at her sides. "This is insane," he barked, trying to puff up again. "You think you can take me? I'm twice your size." Her stance shifted, weight balanced, breath still. "Size isn't everything," she said. "You want to see what skill looks like?" He charged, roaring, hoping to end it with brute strength. She stepped aside like wind, 3 precise strikes to the ribs. He folded. "That's for day one," she said coldly. "When you knocked my books down and laughed." He swung wildly. She wasn't there. A sweep dropped him to the grass. "That's for the milk." He scrambled up, rage in his eyes. He grabbed her arm. Bad idea. She pivoted, using his grip to throw him, hard, onto the field. "That's for every name you called me behind my back." The fight blurred. He landed some hits. He was strong, trained even, but she was sharper, faster. Every strike she delivered had a purpose, a nerve, a joint, a consequence. His nose cracked under a perfect cross. His knee twisted under a precise low kick. He lunged. She redirected. His shoulder popped on impact. And finally, Bryce collapsed, groaning in the frost, blood running from his nose. He couldn't rise. "Please," he gasped. "Stop." Amara stood over him, barely winded. "That's funny," she said softly. "I said the same thing. When you shut that locker door on me." He whimpered. "I'm sorry. We shouldn't have. I didn't mean. Save it." She crouched next to him, her voice low, eyes locked on his. "You locked me in a box. Now I live in your mind." Then she stood, pulled on her hoodie, and walked off. The fog swallowed her whole, leaving Bryce alone, shaking and knowing his world had just changed forever. The last thing Bryce saw before the world went dark was her silhouette melting into the fog, a shadow becoming one with the night. By morning, sunlight streamed through the school's hallway windows, casting long golden lines across the floor. Students stood in tight clusters, whispering, scrolling through their phones, eyes wide with the kind of thrill that comes when the unspoken finally surfaces. Amara stepped through the front doors with the same quiet stride she always had, backpack over one shoulder, gaze steady. But today, the looks that followed her were different. Not mocking, not dismissive, curious, respectful, and something else, cautious. "Did you hear?" a sophomore whispered as Amara walked past. All three of them are out sick. Sick? Another voice replied. Jace has broken ribs. Connor can't walk. And Bryce looks like he went a few rounds with a pro fighter. Amara kept walking, her face calm, her steps even. But she heard every word. At her locker, her phone buzzed. A voice recording was being shared in group chats. She slid in her earbuds and hit play. Bryce's voice, clearly slurred from what sounded like a party. Yeah, we locked that new girl in the gym locker overnight. Should have heard her begging to get out. Thought it'd teach her to know her place. Laughter. Then Connor chiming in, man, she probably cried the whole night. The recording kept going. Every word of their cruelty laid bare. Amara closed her eyes, then deleted it. She didn't need to hear it again. She had lived it. By third period, nearly every phone in school had received the recording. The halls buzzed differently now. Glances, whispers, and for once, empty chairs where Bryce, Connor, and Jace used to sit. As Amara stepped out of English class, a voice called from a nearby doorway. Ms. Fields? It was Ms. Carter, the school counselor. Her tone was gentle, but her eyes were serious. Can we talk for a moment? Amara nodded and followed her into the office. She sat across from the desk, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. I'm sure you've heard the recording, Ms. Carter began. And considering what's happened to those boys, Amara, if you know anything, is something wrong with them? Amara asked softly, raising her brows. They've all reported being attacked, Ms. Carter continued carefully. And now that recording confirms what they did to you. There was a pause. That must have been awful, Amara said, voice steady. Getting jumped like that, almost as awful as being locked in a locker overnight. So it did happen, Ms. Carter said, leaning forward. Why didn't you come to us? Amara met her eyes, unwavering. Would it have mattered? Bryce's dad is on the board. They've been harassing me since day one, and no one said a word. The counselor tried again. Did you have anything to do with what happened to them? Amara's response was calm, even sympathetic. I'm 17. Are you saying I managed to take down 3 varsity athletes? That sounds a little far-fetched, doesn't it? Miss Carter leaned back, silent. If you're in danger, I'm not, Amara interrupted gently. And I'm not scared either. Seems like the universe finally caught up with them. Karma doesn't usually break bones, Ms. Carter said. Amara stood, adjusting her backpack. Sometimes, she said, it just takes the right push. Anything else? The counselor sighed, shook her head. No, but my door's always open. Thank you, Amara said sincerely. But I think everything's finally settling the way it should. Back in the hallway, students who'd clearly been eavesdropping scrambled to pretend otherwise. Some stepped aside to let her pass. Others gave small nods. The boy who once laughed loudest at Bryce's jokes picked up his dropped books in a hurry, mumbling, sorry, without looking up. Near the water fountain, 2 seniors whispered, Man, they say Bryce was crying when they found him. Guess he's not so untouchable anymore. Amara kept walking, silent and composed. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The halls, once a gauntlet, now parted around her. At her locker, she opened the door and caught her reflection in the tiny magnetic mirror. Same face, same eyes, but something had shifted behind them. A quiet power. The kind that didn't need revenge to be loud, because sometimes justice doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it simply arrives. Justice doesn't always make an announcement. Amara closed her locker and walked to class, leaving a quiet storm of whispers and speculation behind her. The hallway that once echoed with cruelty now buzzed with something else, a strange mix of respect and just enough fear to keep the peace. The next morning, Principal Harding's office pulsed with tension. The school board sat stiffly around the table, watching the now infamous recording for the third time. Bryce's voice filled the room again, bragging, laughing, confessing. "Turn it off," Board President Wilson said, rubbing his temples. "We've heard enough." Mrs. Martinez, the student affairs coordinator, slid a stack of papers across the table. "We've received a dozen complaints," she said. Several students saw the boys leading Amara toward the gym. "This is absurd," said Mr. Langston, Bryce's father, adjusting his tie. "My son is the victim. He was attacked. He's injured. And we all know who had a motive." Principal Harding raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting one student, Amara Fields, managed to take down 3 varsity athletes on her own?" "She must have had help," insisted Connor's mother. "Gang involvement. Maybe those transfers." "Let's avoid stereotypes," Board Member Chen cut in sharply. "Let's focus on facts." Just then, the door opened. Ms. Carter entered with a folder nearly 2 inches thick. "These are the records you requested," she said. "Multiple reports of harassment, racial slurs overheard by staff, physical intimidation." Mr. Langston's face reddened. "This is a witch hunt. Where's the proof?" "Your son confirmed the recording was real," Principal Harding replied calmly. He didn't deny it. In fact, he seemed proud. "And what about the attacks?" Jace's father asked. "No suspects?" "No evidence," Wilson responded. "No cameras, no witnesses, and none of the boys can identify who did it." Mrs. Martinez opened a second file. "What we do have," she said firmly, "is clear evidence of group harassment that culminated in false imprisonment. That locker had no airflow, no water. She was left in there all night. It could have ended very differently." The room went quiet. "We recommend immediate suspension for all 3 students," Wilson said, "pending further review of their academic and extracurricular status." Mr. Langston stood, furious. "This is outrageous! Do you know who I am?" His voice rose as he jabbed a finger toward the principal. Outside the glass wall, a passing student lifted their phone, recording everything. "You will regret this," Langston barked. Principal Harding didn't flinch. "Please sit down or I'll ask security to escort you out." "You can't do this. My son has scouts watching him. His future." "You should have thought of that," Board Member Chen said coolly, "before locking a girl in a metal box overnight." The meeting wrapped soon after. Most filed out quickly. Ms. Carter lingered. "What about Amara?" she asked quietly. "They may try to retaliate," Harding shook his head. "They have no evidence, and after that recording, they'd be fools to stir it up further." Outside, parents stormed out of the building. Phones caught every second, especially Mr. Langston yelling in the parking lot, threatening lawsuits and waving his arms at the sky. Amara arrived as the chaos faded. She walked up the front steps with quiet composure. For the first time since she'd transferred here, she didn't scan the doors. She didn't tense at every sound. She didn't grip her backpack like armor. The front doors swung open easily. Inside, the usual noise of the school returned, but it felt different now. Students moved aside as she passed. A teacher who once ignored Bryce's insults gave her a warm nod. "Hey, Amara," called a soft voice. Lisa, from her English class, stepped into her path. "Want to sit with us at lunch today?" Amara smiled, a real smile. "Yeah," she said, "I'd like that." She opened her locker, smoothly. No fear, no hesitation, just a hallway, just a school. Around her, voices buzzed. "Did you see Bryce's dad totally lose it?" All 3 suspended. Good. They deserved it. But Amara didn't need to hear any more. She wasn't watching for danger. She wasn't listening for threats. The weight she'd carried since her first day had finally lifted. Not gone, just transformed. Into something steadier, a quiet strength, a lived truth. The understanding that justice, even when it comes late, can still come. She shut her locker and walked toward class. And this time, every step was her own. Her footsteps echoed through the gym, not with fear, but with quiet confidence. This place, once a scene of trauma, was now just a gym. Just polished floors, faded paint, and high windows that poured sunlight onto everything below. Amara stood in the doorway, hand resting lightly on the frame. It was the first time she'd entered this space willingly since that night. The gym felt smaller now, less threatening. The shadows no longer crept. They receded. The old storage room door hung open, lockers visible, harmless. She walked slowly toward them, steady, measured. "Ms. Fields?" Coach Bryant's voice made her turn. He stood near the bleachers, clipboard in hand, his expression uncertain. The man who had once looked away too many times now struggled to meet her gaze. "I was just leaving," Amara said calmly. "Actually," he cleared his throat, "I wanted to ask you about the after-school self-defense club." Amara raised an eyebrow. "I know," he continued. "What happened? I should have seen it. I should have stepped in. I didn't. And I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't change anything," she said evenly. "No," he agreed. "It doesn't. But maybe this can." He stepped forward slightly, lowering his voice. "These girls need someone who's been through it. Not just someone who can show them moves. Someone who understands what it means to feel trapped. To need more than just theory," Amara finished. He nodded. "Yes, they need more than drills. They need real tools, real clarity." She looked up at the ceiling, the same spot she'd stared at in silence all those hours in the dark, planning her way out. "You want me to teach?" "To help teach," he said. "Show them what works, what matters." Amara looked back at him. "One condition, name it. We make it real. No soft moves, no pretending the world is gentle. They learn to fight, for real." Coach Bryant nodded slowly. "Agreed." The next day, Amara walked into the gym after school. 15 girls sat on the bleachers, talking in low voices. She knew most of them. The ones who took the long way around campus, the ones who never used the bathroom alone, the ones who understood what it meant to survive the day. "Ladies," Coach Bryant called out, "this is Amara Fields. She'll be helping lead the program." The girls looked at her, not with fear, not with doubt, but with recognition. The locker story had spread. So had what came after. Amara stepped forward. "First lesson," she said, "forget what you think you know about self-defense. This isn't about looking cool or learning tricks. This is about survival, about keeping power when someone tries to take it from you." She demonstrated a wrist grab escape, simple, effective, real, no flourishes, just leverage and intent. The girls practiced. Amara moved among them, correcting posture, adjusting pressure. "More pressure," she said to Lisa. "Your attacker won't go easy on you. Neither should you." By the end of the hour, sweat clung to every shoulder, but their eyes had changed. Awareness, determination, strength. Next week, she told them, they'd learn pressure points, real ones, not movie nonsense. Soon, the club was meeting 3 days a week. Word spread. More students came. Some boys too, usually the ones who knew what fear felt like. Coach Bryant watched from the sidelines as Amara did more than teach technique. She taught presence, calm, control. A month in, 25 students gathered to watch her demonstrate a takedown. Coach Bryant played the opponent. She showed them how to shift, redirect, and send him down, fast. He landed hard, got up slowly, but smiled through it. "Notice," Amara said, turning back to the group, "I didn't get angry, didn't flail, didn't react. This isn't about emotion, it's about purpose." She turned to 2 students, guiding them through the same move. Your body is the weapon, she said. But your mind, that's the command center. Never forget who's in control. The gym had transformed. No longer just a space for games or idle talk, it was now a sanctuary, a forge, a place where quiet power grew. The storage room still stood open, but now it held training gear. Foam pads, gloves, first aid kits, no secrets. The whispered warnings about which hallway to avoid had faded. One afternoon, as the group packed up, a freshman girl approached Amara. "My mom, she wants to know if you'd teach an evening class," she said. "For women, in the neighborhood." Amara looked around at the scuffed mats, at the worn-out gear, at the sweat and smiles and resilience. "Tell her yes," she said, "but remind her of the one rule we follow here." The girl smiled and said it without hesitation. "It's not about anger. It's about control." The morning sun painted her bedroom in gold and pink. Amara stood at her mirror, adjusting the folds of her graduation gown. The gold sash shimmered across her shoulder, a symbol of excellence, of perseverance, of triumph. Her mother's voice floated up from downstairs. "Amara, your father's here." She took one last look in the mirror. The same quiet girl stared back. But now, her eyes held power, not the kind you take from someone else, the kind you build and never let go. She adjusted her cap in the mirror one last time, then made her way downstairs. Her father was waiting in the living room, holding a long, narrow box wrapped in matte black paper and tied with a gold ribbon. His voice was steady, but his eyes were bright with emotion. "Before we head out," he said, "I wanted you to have this." Amara took the box carefully. It felt heavier than she expected. She peeled back the paper and opened the polished wooden case inside. Resting on deep red velvet was a brand new black belt. Not just any belt. The stitching along its edge shimmered in gold. 3 words, simple but loaded, stopped her breath. Locked in, broke out, fought back. Her fingers moved across the embroidery. "Dad," she whispered. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You earned it," he said. "Not just for how you train, but for how you think, how you handle yourself. Calm, precise, powerful." Her mother stepped closer, eyes on the belt. "What does it mean? Locked in?" Amara met her father's gaze. Some stories weren't ready to be told. Not yet. "It's about breaking barriers," she answered simply, "and never staying stuck." The ride to graduation was quiet. The belt was folded in her bag, its weight reassuring. The school lot was full, families in their Sunday best. Seniors in royal blue gowns, laughing and hurrying toward the gym. Amara walked in beside her parents. But this time, it felt different. She didn't flinch at loud voices. She didn't scan the crowd for threats. She simply moved forward, steady and unshaken. Inside, the bleachers overflowed. She took her seat in the F section and looked out across the rows. 3 empty chairs stood out, where Bryce, Connor, and Jace would have been. They'd transferred out weeks ago, their athletic futures quietly erased. The principal began the ceremony. Words about beginnings and potential floated across the gym. Amara's gaze drifted toward the far end of the room, toward the old storage room door behind the stage. The locker was still there, she knew, but now it meant something different. Not fear, not pain, resolution. Then her name rang through the speakers. "Fields, Amara." She stood. At first the applause was typical, polite, expected, but then it grew. It swelled. Students stood. Teachers followed. Parents rose to their feet. The sound filled the gym, not just for her grades or her gold sash, but for everything else, for the strength she gave others, for the balance she restored. She walked across the stage with quiet grace, shook the principal's hand firmly, and moved her tassel with calm purpose. The applause didn't stop until she returned to her seat. Outside, families spilled into the parking lot, Photos, hugs, laughter. Amara posed with her parents, diploma in hand, sash glinting in the summer sun. Just as they were about to leave, a freshman girl jogged up, breathless. "Wait!" she called out. "Are you the girl who—" Amara smiled gently. "I'm the girl who doesn't let them win." The girl's eyes widened. In her hand was a flyer, the summer schedule for the self-defense club. Amara had helped organize it before graduation. "Will you still be teaching?" the girl asked. Amara looked at her, then back toward the school. "Some things," she said, "are worth coming back for." Because it wasn't just about fighting, it was about standing tall, about choosing when and how to strike back. Her father called from the car, holding her bag, the new belt inside. Amara gave the girl a final nod and turned to leave. The sun was high now, warm on her skin. She walked with quiet certainty, her head high, her steps light but deliberate. In her bag was the story she carried. Not just what had been done to her, but what she had done about it. She passed the gym one last time. Its windows caught the light, reflecting back the clear blue sky. Inside those walls, she had been trapped. But she'd also transformed them into something more, a space for power, for growth, for change. Her gown fluttered slightly in the breeze, like a banner. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her legacy was already alive, in every girl who now walked taller, in every student who no longer flinched, in every voice that refused to stay quiet. Because strength, it isn't volume, it's vision, and freedom doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes, it walks away calm and undefeated.